She graduated with an MSc in marketing from Brunel University, London, and worked in the UK as a marketing client associate at Marshmallow. She also completed her Master of Commerce from Christ University and Bachelor of Commerce from Jain University. She now serves her alma mater, with her startup being incubated at Christ University, Bangalore. We welcome you, ma'am. Together, they bring to us a wealth of experiences, perspectives, and practical guidance on navigating both academic and professional pathways in the UK. So, to formally begin with the today's session, I have the privilege of inviting both of you to begin the session, and I'll start with the questions.
Thank you, Prisha. Before I begin, I excuse everybody for my bad throat. I sound really bad, but yeah, I'm just going to keep the tone a bit low. Ajay, I think, sorry about that. Yeah, Ajay, I think we'll coordinate together. So, to begin with, thank you so much, Christ Alumni. I mean, of course, coming back here and incubating myself. And I mean, something in the line of educating a lot of students. I think that's what UK taught me. So, moving there in 2020 was absolutely, I mean, no long term vision of coming back to my alma mater, to be honest. So, I just went there because I wanted to do my. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. Yeah. So I moved there to do my master's in marketing, mainly because I taught in 2019 as an adjunct faculty. I wanted to advance myself in marketing, more subjects in that, and do my PhD. But COVID was something that none of us knew was going to happen. And when 2020 was really bad for most of us as international students in the UK, I think hardly saw the university for 3 months. So that day it felt like everything just came to an end because almost there to do a PhD after that because I had almost, what do I say, convinced my professors, partially was almost funded for one of my topics. But then little did I know that whole disruption led to me becoming an entrepreneur because when everything just ended in I mean, it's example, university ended, a lot of things ended for us. I identified a lot of students were not really there following an actual path they wanted to really pursue. And probably a lot of them were escaping reality. Like, let's say, just do master, just do your bachelor's and you don't know what to do. You're not placed in India and you just slip off to do a master's abroad. Like spending a lot of money, like, going with a lot of debts. I think that's something that disappointed me so much because I come from a background of teaching and closely being connected to students. And I just took a privilege of talking to a lot of them, and found out more than 80% of our Indian students were merely doing masters because they just wanted to escape from reality in India. Not because they genuinely want to like learn something more, not because they had a long-term vision of probably like getting the return on investment they actually invested on. It was really sad to see that. And out of the 80%, to see majority were pledging their properties, like taking huge loan, and you ask them why you really here, and they didn't have an answer. I think that was the first spark in me becoming an entrepreneur today. And I found out that I have to really, really help my students. And when I say my students, is because immediately I got in touch with Christ. And I wanted to, like, I spoke to Rishikesh sir, I spoke to a couple of my professors who taught me. And thank you, Rishikesh sir, for bringing me on board today. Honestly, so privileged because when I spoke to sir, how many people move abroad from Christ? He said more than 5,000 easily from all campuses, let's say. 5,000 out of them, how many are really sure of doing what they really want? I think that's where I found a problem and I wanted to dig deeper into it and invested like 3.5 years to get myself certified in this career counseling for international studies for 22 countries and not just UK. And in that 3.5 years, more than 8,000 plus students were interviewed. And the problems were more and more and more. I think they overweighed the good, to be honest. Very few handful of students genuinely wanted to pursue their dreams, actually do something in life. Rest all of them were like, oh, we had no clue after college. And I think I'm a faculty today. I'm too privileged to come back to Christ again. And I meet a lot of students and they come back and tell me, ma'am, we don't know what to do. So I'm happy here. I'm on this platform, and many here, 95 of you can hear me out. And I think Ajay and I have spoken before, and we both were alumni from Christ. He's also in the UK, and we've spoken about how we navigated job market in the UK. And I think there were times when even I couldn't figure out, and I've reached out to Ajay asking him help, like how is it to actually face employers because genuinely people who are yet to start the journey, I think they need to know this. And that's how I would like to begin this entire session. Yeah, over to you, Ajay. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrestha. I think a lot of the arguments that you've raised and a lot of the things that you've talked about pretty much mirror everything that I've felt about my experience with studying here in the UK and having left Christ after having done my undergrad there. I think it is quite important that you need to know exactly why you're going before you make that decision, because there's a lot of other things that can fall out of place, or can completely come as exogenous shocks, like you said with COVID, which you can't control, and there's no way that you can do anything about this. But it's extremely important that, irrespective of all these things, if you're very sure of why you want to go, like in your case, you knew why you were going to go, you were going for a PhD, and that kind of propelled you to make that decision. And then you also were aware that when things weren't going according to plan, you knew how to pivot and find a way around. So I think that's extremely important. In my case, mine is much more, I would say, a standard sort of storyline, which is I knew that I wanted to do something in economics, but then having the experience that I had in back home was that with Christ, there was just one program that which back then was a very new program in economics, maths, and stats, which is what they kind of expect if you want to study outside India. And that was the course had just started at that point in time, which is why I couldn't apply for that. And I had applied for the bachelor's in commerce, and then I realized that I wanted to do economics, which is actually what we are taught in the BCom program in the first year and the second year. And that led me on a path to apply to the UK, because two places where you can go to if you want to do economics is the UK or the US. And that worked out for me, and I realized that there are certain specific sort of job opportunities that are available for you if you like this sort of sector and if you like this field. And that's how I got into this path. So I'm happy for Prisha to ask us any questions, anything that you would like, that you think would be ideal for us to provide as answers for students who are looking to apply, because we're here to give you as much of an honest feedback as we can about the things that we've experienced and the things that we've had to go through. Because that, at the very least, I think one caveat that I want to give right off the bat is that these are our stories, and they are going to be very different from the ones that you experience. We're not here to tell you that this is what you need to do, this is how you need to approach it. All we're giving you is anecdotal information. You will hear my story and you will say, okay, that's how it went for him. I don't want it to go that way. I want to go slightly differently. That's how it went for Shrestha. I like it going that way. I will try to do what she did. That's how we want you to use this information. So please feel free to ask any questions that you might have, anything that you would like to know, and we'd be happy to help.
No, I would suggest that you make your presentation first, and then we'll have the question and answers later. So if you can just tell your story and how you, after graduation, what was the challenges you faced, what are the setbacks you had, and how you overcame them, and what are the career paths. Once you finish, if you have do you have a presentation to show, slides or something?
So actually, I mean, the presentation that was prepared is way longer than it has to be presented. So I think we'll keep it chat based, because in the previous session also that we presented, what happened was there was less scope for question and answer round. So we'll
Yeah.
speak
So
about
what we can do is around 15 minutes. You can just set the
yeah,
tone,
yeah.
tell the
We'll,
story, and tell about all. Then you can invite people for
yeah,
question
yeah,
and answer.
sure, sir. Ajay,
Otherwise,
can
it will not take. Finish
yeah,
your first both
sure.
your stories,
Yeah,
right?
sure, sir. The reason why we didn't want to do that is because it takes a lot more time. So let me just start with this journey. So every time we really see students who talk about moving abroad is mainly because they think what they've done enough in India, I mean, they've done in India is not enough. So for all of you who are sitting here, I'm guessing majority are from Christ. And I'm sure the BCom program that's there all around India right now is much more stronger than possibly what was there 5 years ago. So for all of you who think like what we're doing is not enough and that's why we want to do another master's, a lot of them who think, oh, should we work for 2 years and then do a master's? So what I mainly want all the students to just sit back and pause as a student coach is find out what apart from BCom and what with BCom are my strengths. So what happened is, example, let me tell you, I had a student who met me and recently said, I do not like any subjects in BCom. And what I really enjoy doing is building content on the other side. So what I really discovered after I spoke to him was it's not that he did not like BCom. What he did not like were the number sector, the subjects that had numericals in BCom. So what I saw on the other side was he was a part of clubs, a lot of clubs, where he was actually initiating a team. So where it showed me very clearly that he's a leader. Okay, and I told him something to do with leadership, something to do with commanding, communication, something to do with public speaking is not everybody's thing. So for all the students who really us, I mean, sitting here, majority of them are final years. I would like to actually tell you all one thing to like sit for some time and identify your core strengths and identify your weaknesses too. Because when I started, as Jagdish sir said, we have to talk about our journey. Why did I pick up marketing? And as Ajay said, this is my story. And if it resonates to any of you here, please take it as help. Because when I chose to do my second master's, because my first master's was in India, I did it in Christ. And second master's, I did rethink, oh, is it actually worth investing so much money? Is it actually worth doing another master's? Because a lot of them come and tell me, why do we need a master's when we need to get work X, which is more important? Because I think first thing important, one thing you really have to know is a master level course is a master level course. An undergrad course is an undergrad course. What you really do at masters is you master at one particular niche. And when I chose masters in marketing, it was exclusively in marketing research. And why did I choose that? Because I like research and I wanted to publish papers. I wanted to do PhD. I want to get into teaching. I wanted to, like, I of course want to become an expert in marketing. And today I hold the privilege of 4 papers in hand, all Scopus published. I do hold the privilege of 2 strong projects that I've worked on. So for everyone who thinks, why should I choose UK and is it something that is valuable for me? First place you have to think about is the subject. And once you think about the subject, then you think what in that subject that interests me the most. That's what I did as a student. Okay, and that's about me. So what happened was when I went there and when I knew what I was really going to study, opportunities in front of me looked way easier. So what happens is when you decide on doing something that you're strong at, I always tell my students and I tell myself success is closer. So when you're strong at doing something, you can't force somebody who's not good at finance to do finance. And you can't force somebody to do marketing just because your friend is doing marketing. So choose the subject that really, really interests you. Work on internships that interest you. Do skill learning that interests you. And that is the first step towards choosing that master's. And if you ask me personally, is it worth doing it? I probably will say yes. Because if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't have been here what I'm doing. Probably because an undergrad course was not enough for me to really figure out. So that's how my UK journey started. And I chose the country because the university that I chose to study in, the marketing, I mean, the ranking for marketing was great. The subjects were great. The modules were great. The research ideas that they had worked on in marketing was great. And that's one of the reasons I chose that university. And when I went there, I could actually connect to teachers who worked on research papers in my interest. So, for all of you who are thinking, let me choose something, do a background check on where you're strong at, what are your weaknesses, and then choose what you're trying to do. Yeah, and Ajay, you can continue.
Sure. Thank you, Shishta. So I think that's a very good way to start with explaining how you need to go about picking what interests you best and then start looking at the universities. What I'll do is I'll take a slightly different line of a story, which will help for people who probably already have a particular idea in mind or a field of interest that they have, which they know they want to pursue further in detail. So let's think about, for example, someone who's applying for finance or economics, and I can tell you my story of like how things went from my time after my undergrad, and that will probably help you get an idea of how to approach this. So what happened in my case is that once I was in my third year program, third year of the bachelor's program, I realized that I was definitely going to go ahead and do a master's, and I was fairly certain that it was going to be in the field of economics. That meant that I knew I was going to already look for universities. And in fact, at that point in time, I had started looking at universities in June of the third year in which I was studying in, which meant that at the very start of the third year, I was already looking at universities that I was going to apply to and places that I wanted to ideally study at. And unfortunately or fortunately, what happened is that when I applied for those universities, they had a lot of conditional offers, which said that you needed to have a certain grade in particular subjects. But more importantly, they needed me to have an undergrad in maths, which had some level of rigor in maths and stats, which I didn't have from the program that I was doing. And therefore, what ended up happening is that I ended up doing a research assistantship with a professor at IIM Bangalore. His name is Professor Charan Singh. And that helped me set the foundation for showing that I had interest in economics, that I was working in research, that I was writing papers with the professor. And that allowed me to apply in the year after I finished or graduated from university, allowed me to apply for the master's programs in the UK. And I chose my university primarily because that program there had the option to allow students who are from, for instance, South Asia, which is for Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, who don't have an undergraduate degree in economics but want to study economics as a master's program. So this is something that you can probably look into when you guys are starting to apply. There are programs called bridge programs or graduate diploma programs in the UK, which allow you to do a 1 year of study in their undergraduate program, which combines the 3 years of their undergrad into one. And then you can apply for their master's program after that. The condition is that you have to get a distinction in their graduate diploma program, but that's something that should be possible if you put in all of your effort, and you will be able to go ahead and do the master's. So technically what happens in that scenario is that you're doing a 2 year master's program. The first year being the graduate diploma, and the second year being the MSc in economics, at least in my case. That is the same for a lot of finance programs across the world, and especially in the UK, they also have the same graduate diploma scheme for finance programs. I think the one other thing I want to add is the approach to education or the approach to academics in the UK as compared to how it is in India. I think it is significantly different, and something that I wish I had known beforehand. Small things like, for instance, the expectation that at least in our courses back home in India, we are expected to be in the program every single day. Our attendance is taken. We're supposed to sit through each class. But in the UK, it's quite different. You're not expected to be in any class. Like, there is no attendance system. So you can choose to sit in a program or you can choose not to. But the idea behind this is that they expect you to do the work. All that they're going to do is they're going to have lectures. For example, I had a microeconomics program where I had a total of 10 lectures, each being 2 hours. So for the whole year, I only had 20 hours of time with a professor. I sat with the professor. I mean, when I say I sat with the professor, 400 of us sat with the professor, and they would teach. Everyone else would listen. There were very few questions being asked to that professor, and then they would have 1 hour sessions every week with a teaching assistant who would answer any questions that you might have and give you some problems to solve. What this means is that the vast majority of your time during the week is spent by yourself, sitting in the library, going through textbooks, solving problems, asking questions to the professor in the next session. So the approach to their academics is quite different, and that's something that you need to be prepared for, because you can't expect that you'll be sitting in a class and a professor will come and teach you everything there is to teach. They take a much more they take a different approach, which is that their idea is only to lecture, and then they move away from the course and they go on to another course. So I think that's an important thing that people should keep in mind when they're applying for these sort of programs, being aware of these sort of things. And I think the only other thing that I will talk about, and I'm happy to also open it up at that point if needed, is on what sort of skill sets you need when you're applying for jobs in the UK. I think it is two specific set of skill sets that are most relevant when you're applying for programs like this, or for jobs after you're done with your program. It's specifically to do with data skills and soft skills. So with data skills, the expectation is that you need to know certain pieces of software which become very, very important in your field. So for example, I saw that Christ is as of now offering programs or offering certification courses in Bloomberg and Excel and so on. These are very, very important. At the very least, in most sort of finance, economics, consulting, banking roles in the UK, the minimum expectation is that you need to know macros and Excel to the maximum extent possible. You need to be able to work with these software to the maximum extent. Then you also need to know some level of coding. You need to be able to work with R or Stata or Python. These are some pieces of software that will be quite useful when you're applying for these sort of roles. So my suggestion in these sort of situations is to be slightly prepared in advance for that. If you're aware of what field you're interested in, if you're aware of what programs you're going to apply for, it's good to start to understand what roles you could potentially get after that and start preparing for the skills right from now. And on the other side is soft skills, which I think, if I'm being very honest, Christ has always offered the opportunity for that. If you're involved in fests, if you're involved in community events, if you're involved in clubs and associations in the university, I think you are pretty much sorted on that front, because you have the soft skills that are expected to be able to talk to people, to be able to host sessions, to hold discussions and so on, because that's the expectation that they have when it comes to soft skills. And I've seen that quite a lot of students who come out of India, but come out of specifically universities such as Christ, are very, very proficient in this. They're able to hold a conversation, they're able to discuss, they're able to ideate. And that's very, very important when you're applying for roles, because it just won't be enough that you have data skills. You need to have the soft skills that support your data analysis. So I think that's just a general idea of things that I thought would be ideal to that would be ideal for people to know. Yeah.
I think I just want to add on to what Jay just spoke about skills that you need. I think I couldn't vouch for it better, because what happens is, one thing that is in the university's control is to give you BCom degree, and also like try and push every single student to maybe learn skills. Like even internship has become mandatory now in Christ. And trust me, I think that's the best thing Christ University could do to the students, because back then internship was never compulsory. And now that students actually feel, oh, right after masters in the UK, you feel like a new entry to the market. You don't know what really you have to do. So this internship that you've been asked to do, I think it's one place where you're getting exposed to work even before you're getting out of college. So when it comes to learning skills, I highly recommend every single person to just pick up on one course, Coursera, Udemy, and LinkedIn Learning, and there's so many platforms. And I think every single student should at least get 4 to different types of different certifications, because as Ajay rightly said, later when you have to stand out in the market, and the country is going to definitely compare you to somebody who's local. So they would obviously need to sponsor you. And one of the biggest reasons people who start their career fall back to India is because they can't really validate the employer, why am I actually good? Because what does the employer do? They have to spend lots and lots of money for your visa. And then people come back and complain and say, oh, I didn't get a job and I'm back in the country. Or I couldn't actually get a job. I applied for 900 jobs. I applied for 1,000 jobs. And why didn't they take me? So imagine if a portfolio is very weak, it's just as simple as a degree. And then you do a master's that probably is not relevant for you. You don't do internships. And you think adding a fourth year would actually be beneficial. No, it's the rest of the skills, it's your internships, it's your projects, it's your research that you do. And I keep telling people there's nothing better than a research paper, having being yourself. I mean, you're the author of your own paper. Nothing better than that. So these are the things that you actually stand out doing compared to others. And when you're in that country, you're an immigrant, you're not actually a full resident there. So you need to prove your employer, why am I exceptionally better or greater than a localite that you have to hire? So for that, you need to start working on things right away. And when Ajay said you don't have to wait for your third year, you need to start working on it. Even if you're in third year, you're not too late. You don't have to pick out another year in order to do these skills. Possibly like hop on to doing internships. Maybe like learn one skill a month. So in the next 6 months, you have six different certifications that you can add on to your resume. So all of these are the things that actually make you stand out when you're there and you finish your masters. And then you know you can convince an employer, why am I a better candidate? So I think this is one. And in my journey in the UK, and I mean, I lived there for 5 years. And as much as it was very difficult for me, though I've worked on skills, though I have internships and etc., it wasn't easy for me to convince a random employee why should they hire me. It definitely wasn't. You have to be great at like talking the language that they expect you to talk. So for which, if you're choosing UK, they like research, they like projects, they really like you doing extraordinary skills. So do that. And especially if all the audience sitting here are considering UK as a country, and I think even 6 months is enough to build a very strong portfolio. And your portfolio should completely talk about who you are. Don't do it because a peer is doing it. Don't do it because your friend is doing it. Don't think research is a burden. Research is one copy at the age of 21. You're author of your own study. So I keep telling, and research becomes extremely hectic is when you choose a subject that is not yours or choose a topic that is not yours. Don't force yourself to doing on to something that you don't like. Start it right away, and trust me, when you have that beautiful portfolio in front of you, getting there, doing a master's, and convincing an employer or anybody at all is not a difficult task. I think that's how my journey has been so far, because I've always worked in sectors where I'm client focused, I'm talking to people and etc. etc. And I think that's where I felt that was my skill. And Public speaking could be a skill. Communication could be a skill. Speaking professionally can be a skill. Presentation can be a skill. So make sure you're loud about what you're good at. And when it comes to skills, I would categorize them into two things. One thing that Ajay spoke about, software skills, they come under actual skills where you're learning data, you're learning software, you're learning a specific tool. And there's something called a transferable skill, which you actually carry with you forever. You can have those skills even as a student. Let's say a student comes and says, like, she's the director of any of the club, or let's say she's leading a club. I would definitely want the student to speak about that one skill on her resume. Even it could be as simple as to getting into a university or to getting into a job, wherever it is. So these are the skills that transfer from one role to another. You need to speak very strong about it. So only when you talk about the extraordinary things, you can actually sustain in an international market. And that's my opinion about it. So I think that's about it. And we'll have to be open for questions because we have another 25 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you, ma'am and sir, for both of your insights. And I feel that since the participants who are attending the session, they are interested in moving to the UK for masters and for further education, and not just moving, but also to sustain themselves there if they wish to. So I feel that this helped a lot. And also when sir mentioned about the changes in the academic scenario here in comparison to the UK. So, building on that, I have a few common questions that I would love for you to answer before we move on to the participants' questions. And for the participants, they don't have to raise their hands right now. We can let you know when we'll start with, keep the floor open for the questions. So, one question that might be important is how can students, since moving abroad for masters is a big decision that any of us take, so how can they approach scholarships, funding, any financial planning for their master's degree?
I
Yeah,
think this is best for Shrestha to take
yeah,
on.
that's
Like,
fine.
I think it's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's okay. So, first thing about scholarships, everybody should know is for Indian students, we have two different types of scholarships. One is the Commonwealth Scholarship, which is given to all Commonwealth countries, which of course India is a part of. And second type of scholarship is a university scholarship. For example, you apply for, let's say, Imperial College London, and you think that you can write a beautiful SOP, like a really attractive SOP. SOP is a statement of purpose. You have to let the university know why should they actually admit you. For example, Prisha is somebody who's applying and the university do not have an idea who Prisha is. So SOP, statement of purpose, is one document that talks everything about you, and that should include everything about your personal life, your professional life, the achievements, the awards, and etc. So if when a reader reads it, they have to be convinced enough, oh, this child is actually great. And then comes a resume, which a lot of people do not have, especially when you're in college. According to me, a resume is something that you build on. Like you start writing it, and by the end of the third year, you need it's a solid copy that you hold about everything that you've done professionally. So these two copies play a very huge role for the university to decide how much should they grant you or should they not grant you. So because I'm in this sector now, Secure Steps as a founding member, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to come back and set up in Christ is because we are against agencies. So all these education consultant agencies, we consider them a little on the side of where they scam students, saying that, you have to register with us, you get 5 lakh scholarships, you get 10 lakh scholarship, we promise you. The harsh truth is nobody can decide on scholarships but except the university. So the university decides if the student is highly qualified and what is the caliber, what are the achievements, can we grant them money? And the first scholarship that I spoke to you about is Commonwealth Scholarship, which opens 1 year before your actual application opens. For example, if you're applying for next September, the Commonwealth Scholarship opens this September. But there is one strict terms and conditions that a student should be aware of. If you are eligible for Commonwealth Scholarship, all of you all are because you're residents of India, you have to come back right after the course. You cannot stay back in the country. For which, as a coach, I don't recommend it to students because even if a child comes and walks into a cabin and says, "No, ma'am, we might come back," or we might not be sure. Because I have seen students who actually think they would want to come back. They want to stay back for 2 more years. They want to work there. They want to experience how corporate feels like there, look for a business opportunity there, and actually live and explore the country. And even if you want to do it, you can't do it because you're signing up on the Commonwealth Scholarship terms and condition form that you will have to return to India right after the course ends. So this is one thing I usually don't recommend to students. And the second scholarship is by the university completely. There is no third party involved. And for you to be accessible, like you think that I have to get the scholarship, all the things that me and Ajay have mentioned, building your skills, doing an internship, building a good research paper, writing a strong SOP. This is the only mode of communication, an invisible mode of communication, because the universities will never interact with you face to face to decide if you have to get a scholarship. The only document that you submit decides if they have to give you a scholarship. So that one document holds the highest importance and you have to be very strong on it. These are the only two things. Apart from that, if you see on anywhere, media, social media, anywhere somebody saying you are eligible, remember this is one place to just attract you to just registering with them in order to get your admissions. So please start working on your profile, and that's the only way you can get scholarships. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
about it, Tisha.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And just one more question before we move into opening the round for question and answer is, what do you think were and both of you can answer to this, is what do you think were the biggest challenges, or do you think somewhere where a lot of people can make mistakes in the whole process of navigating the UK job market and the student atmosphere as a international student?
I think I made a lot of mistakes, and as I clearly told in my introduction, I did reach out to Ajay as well because he was placed and like really well sponsored job. And I remember reaching out to Ajay as well because we have to understand the country first. We need to understand that employers are not like Indian employers. And I tell people this: when you are abroad, you need to behave like, oh yes, I'm an immigrant. We can't overpower certain things, and that's where when people ask me, Shrestha ma'am, you didn't have racism, employers didn't put you down. Obviously, when we have an outsider not treating, I mean, not behaving the way we want them to behave, of course, we wouldn't like them. It's the same thing for us as well. We need to, I mean, we are obliged to behave and do a certain things their way. And that's why we are going there. That's why we are settling down there. So I think one of the biggest challenges for me was, and one of the mistakes I would never do was click on that apply button blindly on LinkedIn. I would definitely say every single person, you have to curate your resume for every single job that you have to apply. Because when somebody is looking out for a role position to be filled, for example, it could be as simple as a marketing associate. There are 10 different things they are expecting from that person. So you can't just build one solid resume and apply for 100 different marketing associate roles. One marketing associate can speak a language, the other one may not speak the same language, because associate means different for different, I mean, companies, because they're dealing with different types of services and products. So you have to invest your time to identify what the employer is looking for and make sure you tune your resume 80% that matches up to their requirement. Don't just bluff, but if you think you are really strong on those points, write about it very strong, add the keywords and then apply. That's one of the places where your resume is going to get picked up. Just like how I said, an SOP speaks about you, a resume speaks about you too. And there is a software called ATS, which is not strongly used in India, but it is used abroad, which is the applicant tracking software, where no employers have manual time to actually read every single resume. Your resume will be passed on to that software. It picks up the keywords from the job description. 80% of the keywords have to match from the job description to your resume. And that's how you go to the second round, where the employer actually sees who's this person and what's the resume about. So, one mistake I would never do, and I would request anyone not to do, is just do that easy apply or keep one resume and apply for 900 job roles. That is never going to work out. You need to curate your resume differently for each and every role, and that's how you get through. And second thing is, a biggest challenge I would say, but I would also say it is an advantage. I think I have a lot of people connected to me on LinkedIn is because of this. You have to take an extra step to reach out to the HR. You have to take an extra step to reach out, example, to a marketing associate who's already working there. For example, I'm applying for a role and they need another marketing associate, so I need to look out for who's the existing marketing associate in that company. maybe send like a formal invitation, like a request, and say that, hey, I'm looking for this job and I'm trying to join your team. It would be great if I can speak to you about how you're actually working there and how your job role is like. So if this person can, not everybody replies because cold emailing and cold messaging is not everybody's, I mean, people don't really value it so much. But if they come back, imagine before the interview, you actually speak to them and identify what their job culture is like, what work is like, what roles they do. So that is going to solve half of the problems to prepare. Okay, how am I going to talk to the employer the next day? And recruitment becomes easier when you do that. So that was difficult for me because let's say 20 cold emails and cold messages every day. Maybe some days one replies, the other, sometimes all 20 don't respond. But many of them came back. And that's something I really like about UK. People actually, even if it's a rejection or even if they want to just say they don't want to help, they say it. But take, make use of this opportunity, connect to a lot of people. I feel looking out for jobs in the UK is more about connecting to people, taking their references, taking their help, proving them why am I different rather than just applying. Because there are thousands of them applying. You just have to know how you can stand out. And one of the ways to stand out is to reach out to a team member or reach out to HR, reach out to a company, send them something beyond your resume and let them know you're actually interested. So this is one thing.
We'll take the questions now from the participants.
Participants, they can put their questions in the chat box here, and I will direct them to both of them.
If they're ready with the questions, they can, one or two can start off, then others can do it.
Okay, so Diya Singh.
Hi to everyone. So I'm actually an alumni. I'm not a current student, and I'm a professional chartered accountant, and I've been working for a year in taxation, international taxation, transfer pricing. It's my domain. So I came across the course through Rakesh sir's post on LinkedIn and everything, and I was kind of interested to have a con. So I was listening to everyone's this thing. So I do have a course in my mind which does cater to my CV, does cater to my stuff that I'm doing right now, and I'm a little bit passionate about it. Like how Ajay sir mentioned that I need to see a course that actually will, put into things. So I want to do an LLM without an NLAB, which is like not possible in India. So this is one of my main reason why I thought of doing it from outside the country. Not so UK is not just one of the options that I have in my mind. There are other countries also which do offer good courses. So I wanted to know about the thing in the entire application process and about knowing the course and how good it is for me. I asked some of my friends. They said that I can reach out to the professors and the alumni who have worked or who are there from the college and everything. So I wanted to know, do they reply to the professors or the dean and whatever the committee is there for the uh, like application process and everything? Do they respond back for the course this thing? Like I want to explain whether my application will be even processed, because what I've seen in the courses is there are certain courses in like LSE and all where they
And
will
keep your question very short so that they can answer.
yeah. So that is what I wanted to know, whether the professors and the people, if I'm reaching out to the, especially the professors and the dean, do they respond back to my course, like if I reach out to them, or is it a good option to do that?
I would say from personal experience that it's a bit of a hit and miss. It's extremely unlikely that professors will respond to individual requests from students. There are some professors in the past that have replied. For instance, at one point in time, I was considering doing a PhD, so I spoke to a few professors. Out of the, I sent emails to 10 professors. I heard back from just two of them, and out of them, one said that they didn't have time to respond, so they were going to. They asked me to go back through the website. So I think what they'll essentially tell you is that all the information that you need is on the website. If there's any information that's not on the website that you need to check, then that's what you have to direct towards the towards their admissions team, because that's the team that will respond. Individual professors might not respond unless you have some personal connect with the professor. It's unless you know the professor from somewhere, if you've done some work with them at some point in the past, or if you know them through some contact, then it might make a difference. But I would generally recommend against sending emails to professors, not because they will get annoyed, but they will not reply. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Also, one thing more. If I am on scholarship from the university perspective, am I eligible for working outside also? Like some, I've seen few countries and some few universities have restriction on working if you are on scholarship uh, through the university. Like if I want to do a part time, internship work or any other part time work along with my this thing, or maybe a TA. Like I think TA they allow with scholarship, but I'm not sure about outside the campus. So any
Uh, yeah, what I will say is that at the very least, the student visa that you were on will limit the amount of time that you can spend working in the UK. Unfortunately, I don't remember what it is right now, but when I was a student, it was 20 hours per week that you can spend doing anything. It does not
Still,
matter whether you have a scholarship or not. Yeah, Shesta will
it's
know
still
better,
good.
but uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still 20. I don't think it matters if you have a scholarship or not. But the one thing I would strongly recommend is that if you're doing very rigorous courses, it's quite likely that you'll have to spend a lot of time actually studying for the courses. You might not have enough time to do part-time roles while you're studying. You can definitely do internships, because the summer in the UK is between May to August. That's 3-4 months where you can be an intern in any role that you want. But I wouldn't say that it's ideal to do a part-time role while you're studying, unless you know that you're able to manage both. If you know that you can manage both, then it's fine. But what I found is that from personal experience, the courses were very, very rigorous, very tough. A lot of time was spent actually studying for the exams, and I just didn't have time to do anything other than study at that point. So yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you. I'll reach out later on LinkedIn if I need anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next
Uh,
question,
we
Ritika
pick,
Prasad Kamin.
Prisha, also one thing, we have a lot of questions coming on the chat box. So do we pick any, or if you make us the host, probably we can tag in.
Yeah, that Ritika is waiting. Yeah, you can go ahead with that. Yeah,
So,
do that.
I just have a small question. So, I've graduated, I've done my bachelor's in economics, maths, and stat, and now I'm pursuing MSc in strategic management here at Christ. So, what I'm trying to know is it necessary for me to have a master's abroad to, actually start working there, or can I actually find work after finishing master's from Christ? Is there a possibility? What are the chances that I can actually get into one?
Sure. But the one thing I'll say is, I don't know if you can quote me on this, but I think it's quite difficult to apply for jobs in the UK from outside the UK, because the one key restriction is that it actually does not matter what course you're doing or what you're studying. If you're a good enough candidate, they're very, very happy to hire you, because there is generally a sort of gap in the market for knowledge sector roles where there are not enough people in the jobs, and there are always job opportunities that are open. But the problem is that it's to do with coming to the UK. So I think it's quite difficult to come to the UK on a student
To look
on a
for a
work
job.
visa, where the work visa is given to you while you are outside the UK. That becomes a quite difficult thing. It's easier for them to give you a visa when you've studied in the UK, and then they have to do something called the right to work in the UK test, which is basically to show that that role that they're hiring you for, there's no one in the UK that they can hire for this role, which is why they're hiring you. That's what the sponsorship visa is technically about. So I think it's quite difficult for them to do that. It's genuinely a technical issue for them to get you to the UK and then to give you the scholarship. Oh, sorry, the sponsorship to get the job. So I think that's why it becomes slightly difficult to apply for jobs from outside the UK.
So,
But the
so
one
is
one
there
piece
any
of
way apart from that, like we can sit here and can we like apply it on LinkedIn and then have a virtual interview? Is
Of
that
course,
possible?
you can, yeah. There are people who move as well, but as Ajay said, the complexity is higher because I
Okay.
mean, but it's not like it's impossible, Ritika. You can
So,
definitely.
and also, ma'am, if
yeah.
it's possible for us to actually get referrals from people, like because you've also studied economics, right? So if there's a possibility, you can also
Yes.
like refer us, and if that can help us, bridge the gap.
So did economics, of course. You will have to connect to people from this background and referrals, of course, open to refer. Nobody would.
That works, is
Yeah,
it, sir?
of course, it does.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was
Thank you, ma'am. So we have a lot of questions coming up. So if it's okay, we will take a few who have raised their hands, like one or two, and then maybe move on to the chat box questions. Ritika Prasad, do
Yeah.
you
Thank
still?
you. I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Prasan Gupta can ask.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. I'm Prasan Gupta from third year. Ma'am, I just want to ask, like, you that we are in the UK, like, other than MBA, like, any other master's course, like, what can we do? And other than that, if you want to do any job or something, so what are the procedures for it and other, uh, I mean, procedure strategies for doing masters in UK? Like, can you please tell me?
Sorry, Prasun, did you say apart from masters, what we can do?
Yeah. That was the first thing. And other than that, like, what is the strategies like in order to be in get selected like in UK for any for masters?
You mean to say to get a job?
Like for studies, I meant to ask first, like then job, both.
Okay, so one thing is, if I'm right, you're just asking what apart from masters can you do in order to enter the UK? Is that your
Yes,
question?
and that's the question. Like other than masters, like so many courses are there, na? So what we can plan to do other than masters, like
See, one thing is masters in the UK itself is a short course. It's just one
okay,
year. And apart from that, you have two short courses, which is for 6 months. And trust me, if you're doing that, spending almost equivalent money as masters, doing masters is any day better. Because there are 6 months courses, and I personally believe in 6 months you can't really get yourself
yes, I'm
fully
understand. Like
skilled. Yeah,
both is also hectic becomes.
yeah, those skills you can learn them in India. You don't have to do it there.
No, that's why that's clear thing.
Yeah, so I would prefer if you actually think of doing something like masters abroad, you rather not do it abroad. Because the prices that you actually pay for doing those courses abroad, which is just 6 to 8 months, is almost equivalent to masters. Probably like a 5 to 6 lakhs of a difference. But when you only have less time to prove yourself and an employer in 6 months, because one thing is, if you take up a short course in the UK for 6 months, you don't get a stay back in the country. You need to do a minimum of 1 year masters in order to get 2 years stay back in the country. So a lot of students take 2 years as a stay back and do 1 year masters because you need at least solid. Now it's reduced to 18 months. 18 months to actually sit down and apply for jobs and all of that. That your 6 month short course will not give the privilege. You need to finish the course and come back.
No,
So
yes,
I would say
that,
not really do that. If you can build on to your skill, do it in India.
yes, on that. So can you please repeat like one year master you told and 2 years what you told? I didn't able to hear you.
Sorry, Prasun, I can't hear you well.
You said na that 1 year master is to do, then 2 years what to do, like 2 years something you told na?
Yeah, you get 2 years stay, 18 months stay back in the country in the UK.
Okay, 18 months stay back,
Yeah,
understand.
because you need at least that because you're new in the country and you need to figure out your job and all of that. You can't just do with a short course.
Yes,
And
that's understanding.
yeah, and
That's
I
that's
wouldn't
clear.
really suggest you doing a short course in the UK. You can do it in India.
Yes, on that after being outside doing in India is also fine. Like doing in India is also fine. That's what's clear.
Okay.
Oh, ma'am, thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you, ma'am. Next, someone in the chat, Adhishri, has asked if it's advisable to do their masters right after the undergrad, or should students opt for gaining some work experience first?
Um, on this, what I'll say is it again depends on what you want to do. If you know that you want to get into academics right after this, it really doesn't make a difference if you have work experience or not. In fact, I know of people who have applied for PhD programs after their undergrad directly, because in a lot of programs out in the UK, actually in the US, you can apply for your PhD program right after you've done with your undergrad. But in the UK, it's usually expected that you do an MPhil before you do a PhD. So in that context, I think it does not make a difference if you have work experience or not. In fact, it helps if you go straight from your undergrad to your master's to your PhD if you're doing academics. But for that, you need to be absolutely certain that you know you want to be in academics, that you're going to be there in the long run, you're looking to be a professor, you're looking to get tenure. Like these are the sort of thought concepts that you need to have, which are thinking at least 20, 30 years in advance. So if you're very certain about that, then great, that's the ideal way to approach it. But there is there are a lot of people who might also be wanting to get into industry again, want to work in specific roles, like for example in consulting, in banking, and so on. And if that's what your interest is, then it doesn't hurt to have work experience. Having said that, you can still apply for a master's program immediately after your undergrad, and then look for roles right after. But what you need to do in the interim between your undergrad and your master's is at least do some sort of internship work, or having done any sort of projects from your side to show your interest in industry. So, for example, if you're interested in banking, you can do some work in between your undergrad and your masters by either doing an internship with a bank, or you're doing some sort of analysis on your side, on the side, basically, with some software and some data where you've shown interest and done some projects showing your interest in the field, and that will always help as well. So it really depends on what you want to do, and there is no single approach to it, basically.
Thank you, sir. Priyanshi Agarwal has asked if the exchange programs at UK universities would affect her chances of higher education acceptance and scholarship there.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I don't.
not. It has
Yeah, I don't think
nothing
it.
to do with it. No. It might add value to it, in fact. An
Absolutely,
exchange
exactly.
program will add value from us. Yeah. It's never going to affect you in any negative way.
Yeah,
Absolutely
because
not.
knowing how courses are taught outside in the UK will help when you're applying for those programs. You must also remember the thing that Shrestha was talking about earlier, building your networks. That would really help from doing these sort of exchange programs. You'll get a lot of colleagues and friends from these courses that you have attended, where you can kind of connect with them at some point in the future. For instance, in my case, I know that, for example, that my employer consistently goes to fairs in the universities from which the students are from. So, for example, I'm from UCL, so I go back to UCL to hire students from there. And that's something that consistently happens for a lot of universities. So, if you've gone to any university in the UK, even for an exchange program, you might have a colleague or a friend from the course who's eventually got a job in a company. And then when you come for your masters, you can connect back with them. So, the never forget that the power of networks is super. It gets a foot in the door because you're able to get one step ahead of most other people, because you have either a referral or some additional piece of information about the job or the role, which most other people would not have.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question by Bhumika. She has asked how, since Shrestha ma'am, you talked about how valuable a research paper is. So, how should one ideally approach finding a niche for a research paper?
So I think one thing is, for if you're a beginner in research, you need a mentor. And first, when you pick up, of course, when you speak to your mentor, you need to identify that you're partially aligned with their interest. For example, if you want to work on a research paper in marketing, I can't expect my guide to be somebody from a finance background. I would first need to work around a mentor that is falling onto the same interest. So once you figure out your mentor can actually guide you, because everybody here, I'm assuming you're new to research, finding out a niche is not really difficult. You first like identify what example in marketing, because that's my line of interest, and I can't just say I can work on a random paper in marketing, because I did the subject and I know probably out of, even it could be basic subjects in your BCom, which chapter did actually some, I mean if any chapter interested you, it could be branding, it could be consumer behavior, it could be anything in these lines. You can pick up a subject. That's the easiest line of identifying what you really like. And once you like that particular subject, or let's say one particular chapter, you discuss with your mentor, okay, this particular topic interested me. Once you do that, you have to do a small research on identifying what in that topic is trending in the market. Once you find out what's trending in the market, you then go back and find out what is not there. That's something that we've worked on. For example, consumer behavior is my interest. And when I say consumer behavior, it's massive. Behavior of consumers in every particular segment is a massive place to work on. So what did I do was, I like branding and I like consumer behavior. I try to integrate the both. I spoke to my research mentor. I would like to actually see how a consumer's behavior can affect a particular brand in designing what they have to design, or how would a, let's say, a particular brand react when consumers behavior is negatively affecting them. For example, this Apple, whatever they do, right, they just launch their phones and just say that there is a pre-booking for 1,000 phones in India, that's it. So they create this whole rush, and what happens to people beyond 1,000? So what I wanted to do is, will brands actually get affected if they don't sell phones beyond 1,000, and how would a consumer's behavior affect them? Is it a positive or a negative approach? So how did I achieve that particular topic is identifying what in market interested me, a simple topic. I didn't break my head. And then you go down to talking to your mentor to identify what niche that you can possibly work on. Having a conversation with your mentor, Bhumika, is the first place that you have, but first thing that you have to do. Ajay, I don't know if your research in economics also aligns that way. You can, but until and unless you become a master at doing a research, because you're new to it, talk to your mentor, tell them about few topics that interest you, then do a base level research on what the topics are like in the market, see if they're actually trending, then do your literature review, find and identify what's not worked on, sit with your mentor, then identify a niche. It's very important to speak to your mentor. Yeah, that's, I think, for a college level research work.
Thank you, ma'am. And also, what I see that two, three people have asked in a different way is basically a lot of people are asking about what kind of courses actually have more scope in the UK. So, if you could broadly tell us about that, I think then the people who've asked the questions, then we can combine some of them.
Sure. I would say there's some courses or some roles that it depends on whether the UK market itself has good opportunities for that in the future. So the way to think about it is, does the UK already have an existing market in terms of job opportunities? And if so, do they have courses that allow you to apply for those jobs? So I think one key sector like that is finance. The other one is technique, which is not something that I'm guessing a lot of students here would know about. But then, if that is one of the fields you're interested in, that's one of the other areas. But I would say finance and consulting are two of those primary sectors in which the UK has a strong lead in the world, and therefore their master's programs are very sought after, which means that those are good programs to apply to. Because if you're looking at an MSc in finance, if you're looking at an MSc in economics, if you're looking at an MSc in marketing, all these courses give you the opportunity to apply for the jobs of companies that are in London, for example, which are leaders in this sector in the world. And that allows you the opportunity to go there. That's one field of what I would say is an area that people can look into. Another area that people can look into is academics, actually, because research work in the UK is again one of the top-notch places to be. Uh, Within the triangle of basically Cambridge, Oxford, and London, you have some of the largest research labs and think tanks that do a lot of analysis for both the world and for the UK government, which I would say is another area in which they lead in. So if you're doing any sort of research work, if you want to be a policy oriented person, a policy researcher, and if you do any sort of work in that sector, this might be a good sort of like place for you to apply for, and roles that you might be interested in can come from those master's programs. Shrestha, any other sectors that you can think of?
No, I would actually vouch on the finance bit more, because I think finance and consulting, one of the reasons is UK is the finance hub of the world. The most, all the banks and all the international banks have their headquarters in the UK. Probably moving, I mean, of course, it's still on white papers that the next financial hub is going to be Ireland, is because they've reduced their corporate tax by half. So most of the companies are moving their headquarters there. But I would still say finance roles, anything to do with research, academia, even I wouldn't really suggest the course that I've really done, because it was extremely competitive. The industry is competitive because if a course is doable by a localite, they don't want to actually look at you. If you can do something, a tech based or a finance based, or something in AI or biotechnology, as Ajay said, economics, yeah, these are the top picked subjects, I could say, highly popular in the UK.
Thank you, sir and ma'am. I'm sure this will help them get more of an idea about what to aim for if they want to apply for the UK. And also, the two people have asked this question in the chat. So it's a common question that is studying in the UK necessary for getting a job there, or should they get some work experience here first?
What?
Work experience is a work experience wherever. So even if you think doing an internship for more than 6 months, it's considered work experience. So that's why we vow. I mean, I can never like I would emphasize so much on everybody doing internship here. Even if you think I don't want to work, a lot of students come back and tell me we don't want to take a gap year because working for one extra year will maybe like I'll lose out on the flow of studying. It's okay if you think you're that candidate and if you think later on work experience is going to matter and you might not get a job, kindly work on doing internships for more than 6 months. When you do that, you are entering the UK market with work experience. So, and if you are strong with your academics, if you are really good with your extracurricular, your profile is good, you don't really have to matter. And I also see somebody asking, I want to do an MBA there and will work experience. I mean, a CRI student here with ACCA, that can I do an MBA right after my whatever course? One thing is MBA abroad, MBA India works very differently. MBA in India do not need work experience. You can do it straight out of college. But MBA abroad, it's called an executive program. It's mainly because for people who have worked for a minimum of 1 year. And if anybody in this 67 of you sitting here are planning to do an MBA, please work for 1 year, which I call a full time work experience, not the internship that I'm talking about. Do 1 year and then work and then go for MBA. Otherwise, do not be disheartened. You're not going to be qualified for an MBA. Apart from that, for all of you looking for masters, even if you're working for more than 6 months doing an internship, that's counted as work experience. And if you still consider doing your masters straight after your course, please go ahead.
Thank you,
We'll take
ma'am.
one last question, Prisha.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. So, one question by Priyanshi. More she is asked in terms of law, but I feel it would be helpful for all the participants to know in terms of all kinds of courses. Is as an international student, what can we offer in terms of them choosing us over a large population of their localites also who might apply for the same roles? So, how can an international student differentiate, and what are the factors where we can focus on which we can make better than them?
Sure.
Um,
That's actually a good question on when you're applying for those jobs, how you can kind of differentiate yourself. Let's say once you get to that interview phase, I think at the end of the day, what will always help and it's usually seen as an idea that people debate a lot on, which is the concept of diversity. Because in one side of it, it's more about like ticking a box and making sure that we get someone from a diverse background, someone from a different ethnicity, and that's what we need. That's what it seems to be the issue, or seems to be the concern of a lot of people. But actually, what ends up happening is that when you think about actual diversity that comes into these sort of jobs, it's about the different ways in which you can approach problems and find ways to solve the problems. I think at the end of the day, having come from India, we have a different approach to be able. We have a different approach of solving problems. We know that there are a lot of problems that we face when we're growing up, and we find ways around it, and we try to do our best to get ahead. I think that's something that a lot of students in the UK are not actually aware of, because they've lived fairly comfortable lives and they've had very good backgrounds and very good education systems. Where, for instance, the average student here has got a lot more levels of education, or like experience and extracurricular activities than we would back home. But that does not mean that we don't have the opportunity to work around these things. We find different ways to get to that solution, and that lateral thinking approach, which is what we bring, I think that's very important to hold. Being true to yourself, and showing that these are the things that you've experienced, this is the background that you've come from, these are the lessons that you've learned, and that you can apply these at the job that you're going to get in the future. That's all they're looking for. That's the sort of diversity that they actually want and aspire towards, because they don't want a bunch of people who think the exact same way and solve the problem in exactly the same way. Because if that's what they're looking for, they can get that in a factory, they can get that from a machine which will do the exact same thing again and again and again. What they're looking for is some level of variation. They're looking for some sort of spark in finding the way to solve something differently. So being true to yourself in that way, and also sticking to your guns and letting them know that you know the subject matter really well, is all they're looking for. If you can show that you know the subject that you've studied, and the fact that you're very comfortable of the background that you're from and the experience that you have and the lessons that you've learned, I think you're in a very good position to apply for jobs and work in the UK. So it should be no problem whatsoever from that point.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure this was really helpful for everyone present here. And thank you, both of you, for your inspiring words and walking us through your experiences. And we learned a lot of tips during this session, which I'm sure everyone will be willing to implement in their journey forward, whether they go to the UK or anywhere else abroad. So, your reflections on both your challenges and the possibilities will both resonate very strongly with our audience right now. So, as we come to the close of this enriching session, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude on behalf of Christ Deemed to be University. Firstly and foremost, to our speakers, Mr. Ajay Umesh Pai sir and Ms. Shrestha Deshama ma'am. Thank you for generously sharing your experiences and wisdom with us. Your words have opened new perspectives for our students, alumni, and faculty. And a special note of gratitude to our university leadership for their constant support and guidance. Reverend Dr. Joe C.C., Vice Chancellor, Reverend Dr. Viju P.D., Pro Vice Chancellor, Reverend Dr. Josie P. George, Mrs. Ranju Matthew Ma'am, Professor Rishikesh K.B. Sir, and every member of the Office of Alumni Engagement who worked tirelessly to make this initiative possible. I would also like to thank Brigadier Jagdish sir for his vision in shaping this platform, and most importantly to our participants for joining us and engaging wholeheartedly. This is only the beginning of a meaningful journey through the Christ Alumni Global Connect webinar series, and we look forward to many more such inspiring sessions in the future. With that, we formally bring today's session to a close. Thank
Yeah, I
you all
have one
once
or two points to speak, Prisha.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, firstly, thank you both of you for an excellent session. So very important things which we keep on reiterating, even we heard it in the other talks. First, you start improving your skills. Because anyone who comes to hire you, first they will check your knowledge. That is a very small component. Then they will check your skills, which is a bridge between your knowledge and your execution. So that is what skilling is all about. And then they will check your attitude. So these three things are very important. So they told you that go into data skills. We are already teaching you Excel, Advanced Excel, Power BI, Python, everything we are teaching you. A lot of courses are happening here, certified courses. Please take that seriously. Then we have a Coursera platform in the university for everyone to this one. We have given you a premium account, LinkedIn, also free of cost. Do courses in that. Take up all these courses. Then like they told you about the system, that there is no attendance system. So you have to be self-driven there. You can't just be looking for some kind of guidance all the time. So you have to be self-driven on that. Then you only succeed. So research papers are very important. Please go into those type of things, and that's what can make. And also, she spoke about ATS compliant. We started teaching you from the first year itself that how to build a resume, to make it ATS compliant, how to tailor make it with your job description. All that we started teaching you now. Take it seriously. Ask doubts. Make resumes and get the technique of changing your resumes as per the job description. So these are all important things, and the trending sectors are AI, biotech, economics. So these are the places where you people having a lot of scope. So take it seriously. So these are all things. All the other questions which are there, I think I'm sure they can answer through your emails or other things, and you can connect with them. That will be available through our office. So you can do that. And thank you very much, ma'am, once again. So over to Prisha to conclude it. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your inspiring words. And with that, we can formally bring today's session to a close. Thank you all once again, and have a wonderful day ahead.
Prisha, before we conclude, students can reach out to us directly. I mean, if they can just send us more questions because many of them couldn't be answered, they can email us or connect to us on LinkedIn. Anything would be fine.